Let's face it, life can be tough, right? Especially at certain points. Sound familiar? What we really need are some simple and effective resilience techniques to help us through when those times are the toughest, to help us face life's challenges when life comes along and blindsides us with something unexpected. For those times when you just don't have what it takes to even get out of bed, let alone face the day. We've all faced tough times before. We might be experiencing tough times at the moment. There will be tough times ahead as well. We know that. That's just life. So right at the outset, I will tell you now there will be techniques that you will like. I hope techniques that you will love. And there might be some that make you go, ugh. Not really sure about that one, Chris. What are you talking about? All I ask is that you go into this with an open mind. I am going to try not to repeat myself too much in terms of what I've covered in lots of my other videos. So keep an eye up here for the little bars that come up. And at that point, that means that there's a really relevant video that you might want to check out as well. And I'll make sure that I put those in the description bar below for you as well. And in the description bar below, you can also grab my free PDF download, which summarizes all these 10 steps. Oh, and I'm going to put down there a resilience playlist because music can have such a powerful impact on our mood and our emotional state that I'm going to put it down there. It's Apple Music. If you're on there, feel free to follow it and try not to laugh too hard at my cheesy resilience music selections. All right, so now that's out of the way, let's get started. Speaking of music, this is one of my favourite lyrics from one of my favourite songs. Bonus points if you can tell me who and what the song is in the comments. Anyway, the first technique I wanted to talk to you about is managing your stress levels. So too few of us really check in with ourselves and listen to our physiology, those little signals that our body sends us to tell us that we are under stress. And when we're dealing with the stressors of the world around us, we all cope with stress in really different ways, and not only that, we all cope with different amounts of stress at different points. So we need to be doing something to actively manage those stress levels. Now here's the choice. We can develop mechanisms that are healthy and that support our resilience, or all too often we can lean on those unhealthy coping mechanisms to get us through. And they do get us through in the short term. Unhealthy coping mechanisms could be as simple as not taking a break, of not listening to those little signs, to not talking to people around us about how we're feeling. And at the extreme end of the unhealthy coping mechanisms could even be a dependency on things like alcohol or drugs. So these unhealthy coping mechanisms, they do get us through in the short term, and they can be a bit of a short-term fix, but they are damaging in the long run. And then linked to that is the next technique, which is all about, quite simply, asking for help. Now, too many of us for too long, we go on and we try and stay strong for everyone around us. We don't want to look weak. We don't want to bother people. Whatever your reason is, all too often we are rubbish at asking for help. And hopefully you've had at least one point in your life where you have been brave enough and courageous enough to speak up and to ask for help, to tell others around you that you are struggling. And what happens? So often they run to your aid and they help us, don't they? It can be really tough and really challenging to ask for help, but it has to be one of our key techniques for building our resilience. So often when we're facing challenges and we're at our lowest, what we really need is that point in the future where we can create a vision of how we want things to be. And doing that serves a couple of purposes for us. Firstly, it helps us to recognise that things won't always be like this, that we're having a particularly tough time at the moment for whatever reason, and we'll get through it to a brighter future. And then secondly, it gives us something to work towards, something to focus on and move to. It can give us hope in those lowest moments that change is possible and that we'll get there. And so creating our vision can be our guiding light and a really key survival mechanism for our resilience. And creating that vision links really strongly to the next technique, which is all about developing optimism. Now, before you roll your eyes at me, I am not going down the road of cheesy, positive mental attitude, keep your chin up, don't worry, look on the bright side, it's not that bad. That's not where I'm going with it, though there is something in having that more half glass full outlook on life than half glass empty. Developing optimism is all about looking for those little things that we can be grateful for. And so often they are around us. They might be hard to find, granted, but they're generally there if we look hard enough. Some of you may have noticed one of our dogs in the background of lots of the filming that I do. And that's Jack, our West Highland White Terrier. We lost him a while ago.
I'm sorry.
Series sorry. And as endings go with a dog, it went pretty beautifully. We made a decision to help ease his pain at 17 years old, and so we were lucky enough to be able to be with him and to send him off. And you will have faced similar challenges in your life. We've all faced trauma, we've all faced bereavement, really tough times at the moment, particularly both personally and professionally. It can be really challenging to find the optimistic outlook in something. But do give it a try, particularly if you are one of these people who allows your thinking to spiral and disasterize and catastrophize into what if this, what if that. If you're finding the video helpful so far, do remember to subscribe and hit that bell. There are so many more videos for your mindset and your resilience on the channel. You may not know this about me, you may not care, but we're friends by now, right? I am a very intermediate piano player, and I reckon I always will be. I'm never going to be Mozart, I'm never going to be Ludovico Einaudi or anyone like that. This is kind of the standard I'm at. And I'm okay with that, because this next technique is all about pushing your comfort zone. Pushing it so that you're stretching your comfort zone a little bit, not to breaking point, but challenging ourselves to do something can have huge benefits for our resilience. And for me, learning to play the piano helps to take my mind off whatever else I've got going on. Not only that, it helps me to feel like I'm developing, that I'm challenging myself, so it helps me to build my confidence. And it can do the same for you. Find something that will help you to push that comfort zone and challenge yourself, and it can have huge benefits on your resilience. Something that does challenge our comfort zones a lot of the time is confrontation. Lots of us have an issue with coping with confrontation or dealing with difficult conversations. We push down how we're feeling. We might slip into passive mode rather than when we know we should be being more assertive and speaking up for ourselves. We worry about what other people are going to say if we voice how we're truly feeling. All of this eats away at our resilience, and so learning how to cope better with confrontation and with conflict can have a huge impact. Next, let's look at how we can take more control. Now, earlier when I mentioned developing optimism, I mentioned that you might be a disasterizer or a catastrophizer, whatever you want to call it. And taking control pushes this one step further, because it encourages us to focus on the things in our life that we can have an impact on. So many of us spend so long focusing on the things that we just cannot control or even have an influence over. And this could be simply controlling our response. There is always going to be so much going on in our lives that we do not have any control over. Often the one thing that we can control is our response. This doesn't mean forgetting about everything else or sticking our head in the sand for the stuff that we can't control. We still keep it there. Like I say, we might be able to have an influence over it, even if it's just our response to what's going on. But this can really help your resilience, because when we focus on the stuff that we can control, we feel empowered. Something else that can give us huge empowerment is making decisions. Now, when our resilience is at its lowest, often we feel stuck. We feel so indecisive, we don't know what to do for the best. And making some kind of decision immediately helps to give us a little bit of that power back. And a little bit like what we just talked about with taking control, sometimes the decision might simply be, let's wait and see. Or, I'm not going to let that take control of me. I'm not going to let myself fester over it. That is still a decision. You are making a strong choice not to give it your attention. And that might be the best decision that you can make at that point. Think about if there are any tangible decisions that you can make, little baby steps that you can take towards getting to a better place with something. You don't need to have it all mapped out. just the first few steps. I had this not so long ago with work stuff, and I was having some of those challenges that many of us will have had, and I had my fair share of slump days, but then I started focusing on the future. I started creating that vision that I talked about earlier, and then worked out what were the first few steps to get me towards that. It can have an immediate impact on our resilience because we are taking action, we are doing something. Be proactive, learn to trust your judgment, and make decisions. Something else we need to get so much better at is noticing the positives. Now, this is really different to when I talked earlier about developing our optimism, because what the brain does in its autopilot mode is it tries to keep us safe, it tries to protect us. And so, to cut a long story short, what that can mean is that we remember the times when things went terribly, when we made the biggest mistakes, when we stuffed up the most. And so the brain tries to protect us and keep us away from that happening again. What we are less good at is remembering the times when either the worst didn't happen, when things went okay, or dare I say, things went brilliantly. We are much worse at remembering those times. So if you find this a challenge for you, start to write them down. Start to keep a log of when the worst did not happen and notice the positives. Keep a list in your notepad, start a journal, keep it on the notes app of your phone, however you do it, just start to notice the positives. And then our resilience can really suffer when we are not being ourselves. Being our authentic self just allows us to be able to show people who we truly are. It allows us to live our life by our personal values, and it helps us to stay true to ourselves. Nobody should ever really be asking us to be anything that we're not, to be inauthentic, whether that's in our personal life or our professional life. And so being the authentic you can seriously increase your resilience. Remember to grab your PDF summary of all these techniques in the description bar below, along with those other videos that I mentioned. I promise they will help. I'd love to know how you get on in the comments, and let me know what is your top resilience technique. Remember to subscribe and hit that bell so you know when I'm back for more support for your mindset and your resilience. That's all for now. Over and out. Bye.